These are the worst aircraft ever built. Fighters, bombers, rocket planes, failed jets, unstable experiments, and commercial disasters, 25 machines pilots feared flying. Some deadly, some unreliable, some so dangerous survival was never guaranteed. First up, deadly fighter failures. Lockheed F-104 Starfighter. Nicknamed the Widowmaker and Flying Coffin, this Mach 2 interceptor entered service in 1958 but became infamous for crashes. Germany lost over 292 aircraft and 115 pilots, while more than half of Canadian starfighters were destroyed in accidents caused by dangerous low-speed handling. Now this is the Vought F-7U Cutlass. A tailless carrier fighter introduced in 1951, it suffered severe stability problems, weak engines, and structural failures. More than 25% of all operational Cutlasses crashed, killing 4 test pilots and 21 naval aviators during only 55,000 flight hours. Next, the Vought F-8 Crusader. Despite being called the last gunfighter, this carrier jet gained a dangerous reputation with a 41% loss rate. Pilots landed at nearly 147 knots with limited deck visibility, while hundreds were forced to eject after repeated accidents. And now the Mikoyan-Gurevich MiG-23 Flogger. Entering Soviet service in 1970, it suffered engine failures, poor rear visibility, and control instability. In 1989, one pilot auto-ejected after a flameout, yet the aircraft continued flying 900 kilometers before crashing into Belgium. Up next, Bell P-39 Airacobra. Its engine sat behind the pilot, creating dangerous balance problems that sometimes caused unrecoverable flat spins. Although nearly 10,000 were built, American pilots disliked its instability and transferred most aircraft to Soviet service. Next up, dangerous experimental aircraft. Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet. Entering service in 1944, this rocket-powered interceptor flew faster than nearly anything in the sky, but its corrosive fuel could melt flesh and bone. With only 8 minutes of powered flight, it reportedly killed more of its own pilots than enemy aircraft. Now this is the Bachem Ba-349 Natter. Designed in 1945 as a disposable vertical launch rocket interceptor, it was meant to fire weapons and then eject the pilot. During the first manned test, the canopy detached mid-flight, knocking the pilot unconscious before the aircraft crashed. Next, the Heinkel He-162 Volksjäger. Built largely from wood due to wartime shortages, this jet entered service in January 1945 after only 2 months of development. Chemically unstable glue sometimes caused wings to separate in flight, despite plans to train inexperienced Hitler Youth pilots. And now the Blohm and Voss BV-141. Famous for its completely asymmetric design, the pilot sat in an off-center pod beside the fuselage. Although flight performance proved acceptable, the Luftwaffe rejected production, partly because crews distrusted an aircraft that looked structurally impossible. Up next, the Yokosuka MXY-7 Ohka. Introduced in 1945, this rocket-powered suicide aircraft was specifically designed to kill its own pilot during attack missions. Carried beneath bombers, many were destroyed before launch, leaving pilots trapped inside with no chance of escape. Continuing with troubled interceptors and jets, Convair F-102 Delta Dagger. Introduced in 1956, this interceptor struggled so badly with drag that engineers redesigned the entire fuselage before it could properly exceed the speed of sound. Out of roughly 1,000 produced, 259 were lost in accidents, killing 70 pilots. Now this is the Gloster Javelin. Despite a powerful thrust-to-weight ratio, the aircraft remained disappointingly subsonic and suffered repeated engine problems. High-speed pitch oscillations made control difficult, while pilots nicknamed it the Flat Iron because of its unusual handling characteristics. Next, the Messerschmitt Me-262 early variants. Although the world's first operational jet fighter, its engines lasted only around 10 to 25 hours and frequently failed during throttle changes. Vulnerable takeoffs and landings turned many training and operational missions into fatal accidents. And now the Gloster Meteor early marks. One engine failure during takeoff could create dangerous asymmetric thrust severe enough to overwhelm pilot control. In some cases, selecting air brakes with landing gear extended disrupted airflow and caused unrecoverable dives before procedures improved. Moving into failed bombers and attack aircraft. Douglas TBD Devastator. Entering service in 1937, this torpedo bomber became dangerously outdated within only a few years. To release its torpedo, pilots had to fly straight and level at around 115 miles per hour, making the aircraft an easy target during the Battle of Midway. Now this is the Fairey battle. Despite early promise, this light bomber proved slow, lightly armed, and poorly protected during combat over France in 1940. On one mission involving 135 aircraft, 13 were shot down while nearly every surviving bomber returned damaged. Next, the Curtiss S-Beta-C Helldiver. Pilots gave it the nickname son of a bitch second class because of dangerous carrier handling and unpredictable dive recovery. Engineers introduced around 880 modifications before service entry, yet visibility and stability problems continued throughout operations. And now the Blackburn Rock. Designed with all 4 machine guns mounted in a rear turret, it could not fire directly forward during attacks. Flying at only around 135 miles per hour, it struggled even to catch bombers and recorded just 1 combat kill. Continuing with unstable Cold War designs. Yakovlev Yak-38 Forger. Entering Soviet service in 1976, this vertical takeoff aircraft lacked radar, carried limited fuel, and suffered unreliable engines. If one lift engine failed during hover, the aircraft could spin uncontrollably, while its automatic ejection system occasionally activated unexpectedly. Now this is the Sukhoi Su-7 fitter. Introduced in 1959, the aircraft struggled with poor range, difficult landings, and limited maneuverability caused by thin wings. A test pilot died during evaluations, while combat use exposed extreme vulnerability to ground fire at low altitude. Next, the Blackburn Botha. Entering British service in 1939, this torpedo bomber suffered weak performance and poor stability from the beginning. Visibility outside the cockpit proved severely restricted, making reconnaissance difficult, while repeated crashes prevented success in its intended combat role. And now the Brewster F-2A Buffalo. Introduced before World War II, this fighter steadily gained weight through modifications that reduced performance. Outmatched by Japanese aircraft like the Mitsubishi Zero, British pilots in Malaya called it a flying coffin and avoided combat whenever possible. Next up, commercial aircraft disasters. Tupolev Tu-104. Introduced in 1956, this Soviet jet airliner suffered unstable handling and dangerous stall behavior caused by highly swept wings. Pilots often approached runways far faster than intended, while 32 aircraft were eventually lost, including a crash that killed 16 Soviet admirals. Now this is the McDonnell Douglas DC-10. Entering service in 1971, early warnings exposed a dangerous cargo door flaw capable of collapsing cabin floors and severing flight controls. In 1974, a Turkish Airlines crash near Paris killed all 346 onboard after explosive decompression. Next, the de Havilland Komet. The world's first commercial jet airliner entered service in 1952, but square windows created dangerous metal fatigue stress points. Between 1953 and 1954, multiple aircraft disintegrated mid-flight after catastrophic explosive decompression caused structural failure.